We've been talking about cells, and today we're going to look at the way that cells work together to help complex organisms function. First of all, to review that cell theory, those three big ideas that have to do with all cells and all living things, cells are the basic unit of all life. That means that every living thing is made up of at least one and many times more cells. Cells perform all functions of living things. That means that everything that living things do are done in their cells. And finally, cells come from pre-existing cells, or cells come from other cells. Our focus today is going to be on that big idea that all living things are made of cells. Cells are the basic unit of life. Most are microscopic, but not all. There are some cells that are visible to the naked eye. Look it up, see if you can find out what those are. Cells are made of even smaller parts called organelles. That's where we're going next, so we'll look into that a little bit later. Unicellular organisms are made of one cell. Uni means one or single, like a unicycle has one wheel, and a unibrow is one eyebrow. Multicellular organisms are made of many cells, sometimes one, never one. Multicellular, sometimes two, sometimes trillions. We're going to look at multicellular organisms today because we're looking at how cells are organized in complex organisms. Many times multicellular organisms can be made up of up to trillions of cells, 2, 3, 4, or trillions. Cells become specialized. That means that they each have a job to do, and they do that one job or maybe that small set of jobs, and other cells do the other jobs. Some examples of specialized cells, we'll look at animals to see some more examples of those. Animals have four main types of cells. They have skin cells, or using the big fancy word, epithelial cells. They're thin and flat. They form a smooth covering. We find that on the outside skin of an organism. We can find that on the skin types feature that might cover an organ within an organism. And here's a picture of those skin cells. Muscle cells are thin cylinders that can change shape. If you think about flexing, you stretch your arm out really far and straight. Your biceps muscle cells are long and skinny, but as soon as you flex and that little muscle pops up, or maybe it's a big muscle, those thin cylinders become shorter, fatter cylinders, and that's why that muscle is visible then. Nerve cells, or neurons, are long and branched so that they can carry messages and send them to many different places. And finally, we have connective cells, which produce a substance that hold cells and tissues and even organs together. We would find these in our bones and our cartilage, ligaments and tendons, those things that kind of hold our body parts together. We also find fat cells and blood cells to be part of the connective cell family. So again, four main types, and you will explore these in your activity today. And finally, cells organize to perform complex functions. Cells come together, and when they come together, they form tissues. When tissues come together, they form organs. When organs come together, they form organ systems, and when organ systems come together, they form organisms. You can see that's happening here in both plants and animals. We start with one muscle cell, which comes together to perform muscle tissue, which contracts and twitches and things when the brain sends signals to it. Those muscle tissues come together to form organs. In this case, we have the cardiac muscle, the heart. And then that heart can join up with some other organs, like the veins and the arteries, to produce the circulatory system. That's an organ system. And the circulatory system will join up with other body systems, like the digestive system and the nervous system, and so on and so forth, to make a whole organism. In this case, it's a zebra. Plants do the same thing. Here we've got an epithelial plant cell, kind of like a skin plant cell. And that plant cell comes together to form plant tissue. The tissue comes together to form an organ. Yep, that organ on the plant is actually a leaf. Leaves are organs of plants. We give a bunch of leaves together, as well as the root system. We've got an organ system. And when those systems come together, we get a whole organism, which is the entire tree. So again, cells can be specialized, and those cells can join together, team up to work together and form tissues, organs, organ systems, and finally the entire organism.